How does one live without money? It's not very difficult. One learns a lot living without money. Now, some of you might have noticed that I have a new knight's sweater on, a little bit finer than my other coarse, more coarse wool. This is also 100% wool. I don't know what these cost to buy new, but I found this in the St. Michael's charity shop for £5. And so that's almost living without money. And how I came to find this was, I think I told you a story about meeting Edgar and giving him a book and then going and finding another book. Well, after I did that, I took a walk. I was guided to take a walk to the charity shop, go and have a look, and lo and behold, there's a nice woman knight's jumper, which I need because I haven't got any way to wash my other one, and I don't have anything to wear if I wash that. So now I can wash one and put the other one on. So that's an example of how you could almost live without money. And when I was, before I got this little house here, I was forced to live in the cathedral doorway at in Hereford, and for a year I had to live there, and without any money for a whole year. I was used to living with money, so it was, you know, I've been living with money for the last 20 years, more. And so, how does one live without money? How does one dress without money? How does one do one's washing without money? Well, what I used to do, interesting, it's like this, is I used to buy a new shirt, a new pants, and so on, regularly. Whenever I needed one, I would go and buy one. And I would buy, a shirt would cost me £1. The price has gone up now, we have inflation. This is £5 now. It would have been £2 back then, a few years ago, 4 or 5 years ago. And you could add a pair of pants for just a few quid. So I was able somehow, I would wake up in the morning, having slept in the doorway, and I would find some money in my shoe or something like that. Yeah, somebody would just leave me some money. They gave me £5, sometimes a £10 note, sometimes a few gold coins, and now and then somebody will give me a little bit more than that. Maybe the most I would get would be more, well, about £20 would be the most I would ever be given by any one person generally. £20 is a lot of money. You don't actually need that much. £20 can live for a week on £20, no problem at all. So the main thing was, when you got up in the morning, is you had to be able to get the coffee. You know, you had to be able to get the coffee. You needed the coffee. That was the most important thing in the morning, just to get the coffee. Get into the coffee shop and get the coffee in you. Because I mean, this is right the way through the winter, yeah? Right the way through the winter, through the snow, through everything. And a whole year. And I used to have a lady who used to come and help me. And she had my phone number. She sent me a message on my phone. Are you up, Adam? And so I'd know she was coming, and then I'd get dressed and I'd meet her down at the coffee shop. It's no longer there now, the coffee shop where we used to be. The Costa it was called, I think. Costa coffee shop. And she was a lovely lady, and she was special. She was, people would have called her a bit simple, yeah. Not quite all there, but in actual fact she was more there, more real than any of them were. She was easily taken advantage of, and she couldn't resist gambling. She'd spend all the money. If she had any money, she'd spend it on gambling. you know, on these tickets that you buy, and scratch and win, and one-armed bandits and stuff like that. She couldn't resist it, and it's a crime really that they allow these people, allow anybody to have this stuff. Yeah, it should be banned. Yeah, and so because she was addicted to the gambling, all she could do was pour money into it. But she got quite a lot of money because she was on the sickness benefit, and she got paid quite a bit, I think, and enough for somebody who was living at home with her parents to have plenty, no car to run, no other expenses other than, you know, what she would spend in the day going to town. And so she'd go to town because she'd get bored at home. She'd go to town and she'd help the poor people in town. She'd buy me coffee. Sometimes she'd buy me some food to eat. And, you know, regularly, probably, so sometimes I was getting my coffee every day from her, yeah. And she was like an angel, and she was an angel. She was an angel sent by God to help me, to look after me, yeah, because I needed somebody like that. And there were other people that used to help. And sometimes I was forced to move out of the cathedral because God must have known I was gonna need some money, and He would move me. I only had one other place that I could sleep. It was in a doorway near the council building, and God used to put me in this doorway from time to time. And in this doorway, people would give more money in the doorway because there was a lot more traffic walking past. Now, I didn't do it intentionally, but I did find that whilst I was in that doorway, often I got a little bit of money. Okay. And I never asked for anything. Never ever put a sign out. Never ever put a cup out. Never ever put anything signed. It was just that if somebody they'd slip some money underneath your sleeping bag, yeah, while you're asleep, they'll do it. Yeah. And people will steal your money while you're sleeping. If they give you too much, some other homeless person will come along, some drug addict, because none of them are like me, sleeping on the street. None of them are living in poverty, chastity and obedience. They're all drinking people, drug addicts, heroin addicts, you know. I said, you know the type. And so I used to dress particularly well when I did it. I used to wear a proper shirt, proper white shirt and a tie, a good tie, and a suit. I would wear a suit or pants and top. And in the winter I'd have an overcoat, a good overcoat and scarf and a good hat, always a good hat on. And so I always looked really, really affluent. And people used to say, "What are you doing here?" He says, "Are you pulling the Mickey? Are you pulling the Mickey out of people?" I said, "No, I haven't got any money. I'm living in. This is it. I don't get any." He says, and I didn't get any assistance for a year from the government. And I tried to carry on my lifestyle, which was travelling with a bicycle. And I had a bicycle. Somebody gave me a bicycle. And I tried this. I tried leaving town and to go on the road and do what I normally do. But I was too old. I was just too. I couldn't hack it. I was just too old for it. I have a hernia, burst hernia here, which is getting worse and worse the older I get. But I just live with it, and I was just unable to do it anymore. Yeah, too old. Yeah, 65, 66 years old. Around about the age of retirement. And so, as I approached the age of retirement, I was actually in Africa at this time, and the people in Africa had given me a little roundhouse to live in. I went to Africa with no money, and they gave me a little roundhouse to live in. And when it came time when I needed to be here, I needed to be in Hereford, the whole universe conspired to get me arrested, get me put through the system, get me put, you know, I was in the Gambia, and the Gambia, the British consulate got hold of me, contacted me, helped me, very good with me, yeah, because I was well spoken, I was well dressed. They all kind of admired what I was doing, really, living without money and everything, and sort of had a little bit of maybe I had a little bit of an inkling that I was not the same as some. And so they helped me get back to England, and I arrived in England and they took my passport away. I didn't have a passport, so I couldn't leave. I couldn't get my passport back unless I paid them £500. And so, and they had no money, of course. And so the first assistance of money I got, I used to pay back the £500 so I could get my passport back, so I could visit my lady in Germany. And whilst I was sleeping on the street, especially I think next to the council building, there was a lot of cars used to come and just park up with the exhaust pipes. There's a lot of like exhaust fumes in that street there. It's a continuous traffic all the time. And I think that's what gave me cancer. I got cancer in the street there, and I had to have, really grew on my shoulder here fast. And I just knew I had to have it dealt with. And so I went to the doctor, they misdiagnosed it. And then I had to go again, it was like twice the size, and now, oh my God, and you know, I still had to wait and like watch it grow before I could get an appointment to get it cut out. And they cut it out, yeah. And after they cut a huge piece of flesh out of my shoulder, and it just threw me out. Straight after the operation, they just threw me out onto the street. I had nowhere to sleep, nowhere to live. I could hardly move, yeah. I was like a wreck. With the hernia operation, having to try to look after myself like this, you have no idea how difficult this can be. But it does make a man out of you. And shortly after, you know, when my shoulder got a little bit better, I was able to get over to Germany and spend a month over in Germany being looked after by my lady. And whilst I was there, they arranged for me to start to get this place here. And so I said, well, I'm in Germany now, being looked after by somebody, but I will be back in a few weeks' time and I'll come and see you. And as soon as I got back, I went to see them, and I'd made friends with one of the council people that befriended me. And I think it was from there, it's my association with them, that I managed to be moved into this place. And I said to them, I don't mind where I go, just put me wherever you want me to go. I said, I'm not going to turn anything down, I'll just accept whatever you give me. And they brought me into this place, and there wasn't a carpet on the floor, it was just like complete horrible. It was horrible in here. And I looked at it, I thought, oh my God, I'm used to sleeping in pristine place, you know, in the countryside. Yeah. Even the doorway of the cathedral is, you know, divine nature. And I thought, oh my God, here I am. But I just knew, I just had to take it. I couldn't argue, because I know that if you argue with God, the will of God, then what happens is you have to get something worse. Yeah. And the way it's turned out, it's been a rather good place, this. Okay. So, this is an introduction to living without money, because that's the situation now. So, you don't need to live without money forever if you're living in poverty, chastity and obedience as a divine on the great way, doing the journey on the great chain of being up to God, the pathway of salvation. Okay. And so, because of all the good work I've done over the years, God rewarded me, just gave me this place, gave me a pension. I have a pension now, and so I'm looked after in my old age, and I don't get a lot of money, but to me it's enough for everything that I need, so I don't have to live without money anymore. Yeah. But I lived for 20 years without money, off and on. When I was with my lady looked after me, so that was easier, but I didn't have the money, I hadn't touched the money really. And so I'm going to share with you some of the things about living without money. So this is the end of the journey of living without money. 20 years, and then you find yourself moved to a place where you can be given a pension. I never lived in England, except when I was a young boy. I left here at the age of 11. Our parents emigrated to South Africa, and so I ended up just with a British passport, that's all. And when they deported me from Africa, they had to send me here, and this was the only place they could send me. So, well, they would send me. based on my passport. And so they had to take me. But the interesting thing is there's no, once you arrive in the country, you're on your own. You got no papers, and you can't find your way into the system. Nobody cares. Nobody's going to help you. You're just going to be dumped in the street. No sleeping bag, no nothing. Just God help you. I'll take 5 and I'll come back with a bit more. Whoa, I just put this on now and it got so hot with this thin. It's funny, the thinner the wool, the finer it is, the warmer it is. It's a paradox. And so this one's, I had to turn the heating off. There you go. Powerful sweater. Okay, living without money. And so, where does this originate from? Well, Jesus said, follow me. That's what Jesus said. And how were you supposed to follow Jesus? You're supposed to give all your money away, right? Give all your money away. And just get up and walk. And so, looking for instruction on this, this was what I had when I first started out. Okay, so I gave everything that I had to my family. When the youngest child was 16 years old, there's just 2 of them, and when the youngest was just over 16, I was called to leave because the life that I was living there, I had become a holy man, and my family didn't even know what that was, and so being unable to educate them in the subject, I was left with nothing else to do but to leave, really, when my time came when I had to get on my mission, because at some point you get trained up. I was probably 3 years or so being trained on the Great Way, and then the Great Way leads you out of the country. You know. You have to leave your family, give everything away after a certain amount of time, give it all away. And I left with an emergency. I had an emergency £500 cash in a special place in my bag, which was in case, because I didn't know what was going to happen to me, in case I ran into trouble. Okay, not to be touched, right? Not to be touched. And I left there with, I didn't have a sleeping bag. I had a woman dressing gown, dressing gown. That's all I had to sleep under. It rolled up quite small, and that was it really. And I left I arrived in England on the 5th of November. Cold, yeah, virtually starting to become midwinter, yeah. And for the first week I stayed with somebody, and I just had to leave and hit the road jack, and I walked out of the house, and I just had to walk until it was dark, getting dark, and I found just somewhere in some open field in the bush just to sleep, and I had to sleep in November under this thing with all my clothes on still, and then this thing. I did have a good puffer kind of a coat, and then this over the top, but the feet were terribly cold, yeah, terribly cold. And so I had to suffer like this because I'd done a lot of things in my life, and it was necessary that in the beginning of the journey, when you go live without money on the Great Way as a monk, you have to suffer a fair amount. But the remarkable thing is it hardly ever rained, hardly ever, and it would almost rain, but it would not rain on my head. And I remember once it did rain, and it was getting dark, it was almost pitch black, and I was in the field, just started to rain. I thought, what's that I see over there? And then all of a sudden there's a shape, I see, in this old hay wagon or something, old wooden hay wagon. farm wagon. And so I was able to get underneath that as a protection from the rain. And that was the one time it rained at that time. And it wasn't a lot of rain. The rain kept away from me. And I just walked. I just walked by foot, yeah, with a bag and a guitar. So I did buy a guitar. I arrived with an electric guitar and I swapped it for an acoustic guitar in London. And so I had a guitar, but I'd never played music in the street, really. And the interesting thing was, my ears were damaged by the aeroplane flight from where I was living. It was, and so they took like months and months to recover. And so I couldn't even hear myself sing or nothing. It was like really, really hard and scary to do any kind of busking thing. Yeah. And so, but I ended up starting to do a bit. You know, I'd take the guitar out and I could hardly play and sing. It was terrible, really. And people expect a high standard, and so I was able to make just a few pounds, just to keep myself going with a bit of food and that. Yeah. And what I found on the way, you know, sometimes you find food. Yeah, you find food that's been thrown away. Okay. And if you have nothing to eat and you find food that's been thrown away, if it's all right to eat, you'll eat it. Yeah, God will direct it to you. You'll not waste it. Okay. And so to move across the country like this and survive, busking little and so on, and just being taken to where I was supposed to be. And I ended up making my way, finding myself in Glastonbury, probably in December, Glastonbury. And Glastonbury was a great place to be, to play a bit of guitar and so on in the street. It was possible, difficult but possible, to make a few pounds. And what I would do is I wouldn't be like a normal busker who'd play for a long time, because I couldn't. Yeah, I was just no good at it. And so what I would do is, if I felt called to take the guitar out and play it, I would do so. I would take the guitar out and I would play. And I would play it until somebody gave me something, gave me a coin, something, gave me a pound, gave me £2. And that was it. I'd pack my guitar away, take my £1, £2, and buy my cup of coffee or buy my loaf of bread or whatever it was. I wouldn't play for hours, only play until I got what I needed. And so, and only guided to do it by God. Yeah. So it wasn't like it wasn't a business. It was like an emergency situation. It was like, well, I have to do this because how will anybody ever know? I'm not allowed to ask for anything. How will anybody ever know that I need something? Yeah. And so you learn in this way to live on very little money. But the idea behind it all goes back to the journeyman years of people when they studied an art like baking or farming or carpentry or something like that. They would study the art and then as an apprentice. And then after a certain apprenticeship, they'd have to go on the journeyman year. And this was a year where they did exactly what I'm telling you about now, which is they had to walk the world just freely without money. Okay, and they used to dress in a special clothing. Now I only found out about this from Germany because they don't have it in other countries anymore. All countries probably had it in the beginning. Germany still has it a little bit, and so you see these people and they carry sticks, like I was carrying sticks, and they have special hats, and there's always two of them. One has a square hat, the other has a round hat. It's very interesting. And they are supposed to live without money, yet I don't think that they actually strictly do that anymore. But that's what they're supposed to do. And the people are supposed to recognise from what they're wearing that they're on this journeyman year and freely offer to help them and so on. But now I think they have special places that they go to that they can stay overnight and things like this. I'm not sure exactly how it works, but you still see remnants of it in Germany. And so it was something that everybody had to do who learnt an art. All the university people, you had to do it. You had to do your journeyman year. You had to live without money. Throw yourself on the mercy of God. And in this way, you learn about the presence and existence of God in the world. That's what it's designed to do. Living without money is to prove to you that God exists. Okay? And it absolutely works, because if there was no God and things were just random, I'd be dead now. I would have been long dead, years and years ago. 20 years ago I would have died. Every single day, somehow, I never missed a meal. I had everything I needed. I eventually found a proper bag to carry, because my bag was no good. I found a proper sleeping bag in the end, but it took time. Yeah, it took time to acquire the things that I needed. As I moved along the way, so things found their way to me. Yeah, I remember somebody offered me work cleaning up the autumn leaves or something, and at one time, and they paid me a lot of money. They paid me about 100 quid or something like this to clean up some leaves. To me, it was a fortune. I wouldn't normally do something like that unless somebody just asked me. I couldn't go and ask, can I have a job or something like that. But if somebody said, can you help us with the leaves, we'll give you some money. Yeah, fine, sure, I've got nothing else to do, I'll help with the leaves. And so they gave me £100, and that's the only day of work I ever had on this journey in the last 20 odd years. And with that money, I was able to buy a sleeping bag and proper backpack, the emergency stuff that I needed, because winter was fast approaching and I was going to find myself in the mountains of the Lake District, in the frozen lakes and stuff like that. I would have died with what I had if I hadn't got this. God provides everything that you need, just when you need it, only just enough. And there's another thing that I have to tell you about too. I had no tent, okay, and I had to make my shelter every day different. There was no system to it. I had some sticks that I used to walk with, so I carried those, and I had some plastic sheets that I'd found, and a number of pieces of old umbrellas. I pulled the umbrella covering off, and I had a certain set of stuff that in an emergency I could build a shelter, because it used to rain, yeah? And if it rained, you had to build your shelter quick and get under there. If you got wet, something bad would happen to you. There's no way to dry off. What would happen if you got wet and it rained for 2 weeks? Yeah? And these things happened to me. Yeah? Many things happened. So it was a big challenge to follow nature, just to let your hands. Each time you put your tent up, it was done differently. You didn't know. You weren't using the logical mind. You were just following your intuition, how this thing would fit together each time in a different place. Using whatever was there, whatever trees were there, whatever branches were there, to build a shelter, and then to crawl into that, and then you could lie down. But otherwise you had to move, yeah. So you'd be walking, moving, and all the time with no access to the internet or mobile phones or nothing, just you and nature, that's all. And you learn many things about nature, and over 20 years, which is how long it takes to do this, to become a druid, and to whilst you're doing it, you end up travelling all over the world like this. You graduate to a bicycle because you find that you go lame if you're carrying your bag for too long. Then you need a horse to carry it, and that's your bicycle. Your bicycle becomes your horse, so that you can. And also it becomes useful, your bicycle, because you could leave it in places and you don't have to carry a bag. And people won't necessarily interfere with the bags on the bicycle. You just leave it in the street somewhere. And so the bicycle is a useful thing to have. And eventually I got rid of the guitar. It was too heavy, too difficult to carry with the guitar. It got taken from me It got taken from me. I left it in a church in Glastonbury for a week, and when I went back, one day after a week, I went back, it was gone. Somebody had helped themselves to it. And I had a block flute, a recorder, one of those flute things. And I found that, and I made a thing that's strapped on it to go around my neck, and I just hung that around my neck so that it was easy to travel, get over things, just had my flute there ready. And if I needed to do anything with the blood, this is over after years of doing this stuff. There have been all sorts of different ways. And I would pull the flute out and I would just go do, and the money would be there, and I put it away and go and get what I needed. Yeah. So there's a message from Our Lady. So I'm going to check what the message is, stop now, and I'll come back and tell you about the most amazing flute playing experience. The easiest money I ever made playing flute. That's interesting. Just as we're talking about living without money and me giving my job up, and that, Elizabeth just messaged me to say she's packed her job. She doesn't want to be a leader anymore. She's given her job away. And that's interesting to see what happens with that. Okay, so the most amazing flute playing, money acquiring incident of my life. Okay, I'll tell you that. So I used to sleep on the Chalice Hill, which is next to the Tor at Glastonbury. And nobody else was there, just the cows and me. It's just a grassy hill with one or two trees on it. But it is a place where the chalice of Jesus of Nazareth, his cup, is supposedly buried there. Yeah? That's why it's called Chalice Hill. So it's a special place, a holy site. And when I was in Glastonbury, I used to keep the holy site. I was the highest holy man in Glastonbury for many years. Okay. And had to go through some of the lower level steps of the journey to salvation. Doing that, living there. One day I came down from Chalice Hill, and I just walking down the main street, and as I approached the top of the main street, I see a whole bunch of people just starting to walk up the main street, like about 20 of them, yeah. And so as I walk to the corner of the main street, they're just coming the other way like this, and so I just stop, I take my flute out and they go toodle 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 toodle, and they all stop and they all give me like a whole pile of money, each one of them gave me, and I had about 20 quid at the end of it, £20, like toot 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 toot, £20. And it was like, because I've done a lot of great work for God in Glastonbury. I used to meet people and take them around, show them where everything was, explain the history of the place for nothing. I just did it. And I was this interesting character that lived in nature and helped the people, yeah. And spent a lot of time in the Library of Glastonbury down there, Library of Avalon they called it. That was my place. And it was my abbey, I was the abbot of Glastonbury. That was my position there. I was the abbot of Glastonbury, appointed by God. And an abbot is a certain position. It's not like the father of the church, but it is. Like abbot is abbot. Yeah, it is. I was a father at the church, and this time, of course I was. Yeah, of course I was. Yeah. It's a long time. It's a long journey. So it gives you some sort of idea of living without money. I mean, once how I left Glastonbury, okay, that's an interesting story. One day I was walking, I walked to the main, there was a PowerPoint in Glastonbury, next to the Abbey, right next to the Abbey, where people would gather and wait, a meeting spot, yeah. And so I was just sort of called to walk towards it, and I walked and there was this couple there with a child. Nice couple, special couple, and I said, "Oh, hi, how's it going?" And I didn't know them. They had just arrived in Glastonbury in a van, and there was a special time going on in Glastonbury. There was lots of people around, and they were part of that, but they were passing through for that, and then they were carrying on to the European Rainbow Gathering in Bosnia, right? And so I said, "Oh, what are you doing?" He said, "Oh, we're just on our way to the Rainbow Gathering in Bosnia." I said, "You want to come?" I said, "Sure, no problem." I just instant, "You want to come?" And I just said yes. I said, "Yeah, I'll get my stuff." And so I went and got my stuff, and I jumped in their van, and off we went to Bosnia in the van. And they taught me, I was busking at the time. I wasn't actually eating stuff from supermarket rubbish bins. That wasn't something that I'd done up to that point. And so in the van, they showed me how that in Europe you can just, and in Britain of course, you could drive into the parking lot of a supermarket and open the bins and find all the good stuff that they're throwing out. Yeah, it's only just passage use by date. It's all sorts of stuff, good stuff. Okay, and so they taught me, I suppose, how to live from supermarket bins. Yeah, which sounds like a bad thing, but it's not. It's because it's kind of like it's there for the poor. The poor people who don't have any money can get fed that way, because unless you've got money, you can't get anything. Yeah, all the charities and all that, they don't operate. Yeah, you can't just go there and get stuff. You have to be referred to these places, and it's not a free for all. So the supermarket parking lot is a free-for-all, that's what it is. And so you can get whatever they've got. You can take your pick. You get cheese and stuff, whatever, all the usual things that they're throwing out. You can collect in bags, put in the van, and now you've got some food. And so they taught me how to do that as rainbow people. The rainbow people were a special kind of people. Before the rainbow was stolen by the LGBT bunch, stole the flag of the rainbow used to be the people who were called to save the planet. That's what they were. And so I had to be the leading spiritual figure for them. They didn't know that, but I was sent to them for their salvation. In Bosnia, I introduced some changes into what they did there. Did my spiritual work in the Bosnia Rainbow Gathering. So I got my wings at that point. I went from being an abbot of a single place in Britain, in one country, to going continental wide. I was European wide then. When I got to the Rainbow Gathering, that was a European wide work. And that's what happens. Your work spread from being European, then you might be able to go into Asia and some other continents, and eventually you become worldwide. Yeah, but it's a long journey. It's a long journey to do this, and the whole time you have to be living in poverty, chastity and obedience. Poverty means living without money, without any money, just what God gives you. Okay, now that's what you call a miracle. That every day you can survive without any money, it proves that God exists. So I've proven it. My life is proof, living proof, that there is a God in this world, because as long as you lead a virtuous life and only do good things, your karma is that you get looked after in the finest way. I have the finest things, not the most expensive things, but I have the finest things that I need to do, and only what I need to do my work. If I need ink, I have ink. If I need a candle, I don't buy a candle. My lady sends me a candle. See, this one's going to run out before the cards are finished, and just recently she gave me this one at Christmas time, I think, and so that's the one that we need to finish these cards off, because there's 100 of them, and we've only done, this is the 14th. And the interesting thing is that 13 is the number of the group. And you'll notice that card number 13, which was the last card, was all about the group, the relationship with the individual, the couple and the group. What was that card called? do what you like, but not so that it hurts the group. I think it's enough on living without money. You have to try it yourself. If you picked the card, it's telling you, understand it, understand that it's a necessary part of the journey, and perhaps you need to try it. Perhaps you need to try it yourself. To live without anything, just to go, walk out and go off into the world and find out if you die or if you live. And I can tell you 20 years later, I'm still living every day. Every day I've lived in the lap of luxury. And I've had to build my own little houses and my own shelters and in the middle of nowhere, but I had a wonderful, wonderful time doing it. And my life has been remarkable, and I wouldn't change it for a world, although I wouldn't want to do it again, not at my age, but I wouldn't change it for the world. And now what I do, when I do this kind of thing, when I go on pilgrimage, I go by boat, because that's the next level up. After the bicycle, you have to do the boat. I discovered this on the way, and so I've done many boating escapades. And my channel has some of my boating pilgrimages that I've made. And I'm not sure what I'm going to do with my boat. I thought this year I might just give it away, but I didn't. And so I still have my boat, and what I do with it, I don't know. It's in Cornwall. Do I use it this year or not? I don't know. I have to wait and find out. I don't have to busk in the street anymore. And that's good too, as the older you get. You're an elder. You have to have certain level of dignity, yeah. And these, playing music for people, is a younger man's occupation. So you'll see on the card, there's a busker here. And it's necessary to learn an instrument. And I say, my advice is, the easiest instrument is a flute or a penny whistle. This is easier to carry than a guitar. But if you already play the guitar, it's nice. It's nice to have a guitar. But it is difficult to carry. It can be done on a bicycle, It's not easy. Okay. Okay, we're going to pick the next card now and get rid of this one. And this is the card for the next video, which I'm going to do tomorrow. And if you subscribe to the channel, you'll get a link in your feed to this next reading. So let's do the cards. We do them by division. So whichever hand moves, we throw away what we don't want until we end up with one card left, which is the Way. The Way. Most appropriate card after the last one. Most appropriate. You really should subscribe and check this one out. This is going to go into detail how to walk the way, yeah, how to find your way on the great way of being. That's a nice picture.